We are going to talk about dialysis. So dialysis, the word is a combination of two words. Basically, it's a dia and lysis. Dialysis is also known as artificial kidney. Known as artificial kidney, it simply means that when your kidney fails, that time you need a kidney donor. But since you don't get a kidney donor, you are dependent on dialysis. Therefore, it acts as your kidney that helps in purification of nitrogenous waste. Dialysis word has came from the word dialysis, that is dissolution. This means through, lysis means loosening. So it is the loosening of the blood vessel that is done. It is used for AKI. What is AKI? It is acute kidney injury, and CKD stage 5, that is chronic kidney disorder stage 5. If your kidney has reached till the chronic stage of 5, it means your kidney needs dialysis. Otherwise, you can even die, because all the nitrogenous waste gets accumulated in your blood, and these nitrogenous waste can create problem with the normal metabolic functioning of your body. So dialysis is done when there is chronic renal failure. At the same time, I can say it is kidney failure. So you can use renal failure, or even you can say kidney failure or kidney diseases. The technical term that is involved, in the failure, basically, it is called as azotemia. Azotemia is nothing but it is the failure of the kidney. The causes for failure of kidney can be prerenal, intrinsic, or even postrenal, before the kidney, inside the kidney, or after the kidney. Then it has to be subjected to dialysis. When we talk about dialysis, we need to understand that the patient first is subjected to a bed which is continuously vibrating, so that the blood vessels and the movement of the blood in the body of that patient becomes bit faster. So let's understand one very important concept with respect to dialysis. Dialysis is an imperfect technique. Why I call it as imperfect technique, students? Because dialysis will solve only the purpose of removing nitrogenous waste, but kidney performs lots of hormonal functions. So logically, dialysis is an imperfect technique to replace kidney function, because it does not performs the hormonal function of kidney. Like kidney secretes erythropoietin, kidney secretes calcitriol. All those hormones will not be produced in case of dialysis. Only the nitrogenous waste will be filtered. Nothing else can be done. At the same time, if erythropoietin is not there, so there is no new blood formation also. So dialysis, basically I can say it performs two important functions. One is waste removal. Second, it helps in ultrafiltration. Now, dialysis is not solving erythropoietin function. It means that it will not be helping in production of new RBCs. And most of the time it has been observed that the patient who is undergoing dialysis, after long run of dialysis, he has to undergo blood transfusion also, because kidneys hormone like erythropoietin is involved in RBC production, and calcitriol is used in bone formation. This becomes very important role of kidney. That's why temporarily dialysis is fine, but on permanent basis you have to go for kidney donor. So what I'm going to do, I will show you the technique how dialysis is done. First, there is a bed, and to this bed we have the patient basically who is going to lie down, and this patient will be continuously subjected to a motion where his body will be continuously vibrating, and there will be motion going on, so that the blood flow in his body increases and the loosening of the blood takes place. So there is a vibration in the bed. Like for example, when we run very fast, that time the blood pressure in our body increases, the blood flow increases, and that blood flow results in the loosening of the blood. But here the person who is suffering from kidney failure, we cannot subject him to running, so definitely we provide him bed where loosening of blood vessel takes place. Dialysis is also called as artificial kidney. It is also known as hemodialyzer. So let's take it in this way. Let's take the hand of this person or the patient who is suffering from basically kidney failure. So I will be drawing a machine. Now this machine, basically we need to understand here, is a dialyzing machine. It is a dialyzing chamber, and this dialyzing chamber basically consists of, this dialyzing chamber consists of dialyzing membrane, very important part. And this dialyzing membrane is semi-permeable in nature. It is semi-permeable in nature. Okay. It is semi-permeable in nature. That is what we need to understand. Okay. Let's understand the next important part, that this dialyzing chamber this dialyzing chamber is surrounded by fluid, and this fluid is called as dialyzing fluid. This fluid is called as dialyzing fluid. And this dialyzing fluid consists of ions, salts, and other important part. So this is the dialyzing machine. There has to be input from where the things will be, dialyzing fluid has to enter. And at the same time, there is an outlet from where all the fluid which has the nitrogenous waste has to be eliminated. So this is the complete setup for dialyzing machine. But apart from that, in our hand we have radial artery and we have radial vein. So what we need to understand here, when we talk about radial artery, the one that brings the oxygenated blood, and the radial vein that will take the deoxygenated blood. So this dialyzing membrane is there instead of chamber. So we say dialyzing chamber. Inside the chamber there is a dialyzing membrane. Then surrounding the membrane there will be dialyzing fluid, and this dialyzing fluid will help in exchange of nitrogenous waste. Let's understand the next important part. There is two important things that has to be taken care of. So let's take it in this way. The blood that is going to pass from the radial artery into the machine, it has to pass under certain pressure, under certain condition, under certain temperature. So that has to be regulated very properly, otherwise the patient can die. So here we are having a pressure meter basically that is going to measure, and we are going to add one anticoagulant also, that is heparin, because as the blood comes in contact with air it will clot, but the blood should not clot, and that's why we make use of anticoagulant. The anticoagulant that we normally use is heparin. So let's understand now the next important part. This is again from inlet as well as outlet. Both sides there will be anticoagulant and pressure gauze. Now this completes your dialyzing machine. From radial artery, the blood will be sucked, and this blood will pass, and the pressure of the blood will be maintained by pressure gauze. Anticoagulant will be added, and then finally it passes through the dialyzing membrane. So what happens in the dialyzing membrane? All the nitrogenous waste from the blood will start entering in the dialyzing fluid. At the same time, the ions and the salts will start entering inside the blood so as to maintain the proper osmotic concentration. And finally, through radial vein, that purified blood will enter. Now the deoxygenated blood basically enters. Now from the radial vein, it will travel into the heart, it will go into the lungs, and the blood will become oxygenated. So this is dialyzing chamber, a dialyzing machine, and it takes at least 4 to 5 hours to complete the procedure. So remember, it is called as dialysis. This is normal dialysis. There is something called as peritoneal dialysis. Now this dialysis can be done at home also. It can be done at home also. So there is a dialyzing fluid, and the dialyzing fluid is directly introduced in the abdominal cavity or in the peritoneal cavity. It will be directly introduced in the abdominal cavity or peritoneal cavity, where peritoneal membrane will be there, semi-permeable membrane is there, and this dialysis, which is peritoneal dialysis, can be easily carried out at home, or even it can be carried out at work. So peritoneal dialysis is good technique because it saves your time while you are doing all your work. So remember, there are two types of dialysis. One is hemodialysis, where the big machine will be used. Second is a peritoneal dialysis. Let's talk about kidney stone. Now how and why the stones are formed. Stone basically here doesn't mean that it is actually a big stone. Stone means it is accumulation of minerals. Sometimes when you don't drink sufficient amount of water, what happens? All the minerals that are present in your body, they accumulate together, they crystallize, they become hard, and that forms a stone like appearance. This is called as lithiasis. So when I use this word ureterolithiasis, means stone in the ureter. When I say urolithiasis, it simply means stone in the urinary bladder. When I use this word nephrolithiasis, nephrolithiasis means stone in the nephron. So the word uretero is for ureter, lithiasis is for stone. Same for uro is urinary bladder, and nephro is for nephron. What exactly happens in the kidney stone, students? There is accumulation of urinary minerals, and these urinary minerals, they are called as renal stone, or even it is called as renal calculi. This is also called as pebbles. There are different types of stones that we see in humans. So the various types of stones are, first there is accumulation of some crystals, like it can be sodium oxalate crystals, or even it can be calcium oxalate crystals. So these crystals like sodium oxalate or calcium oxalate, when it accumulates in a body, it leads to the formation of kidney stone. Calcium phosphate stone is another type of stone. There is something called a struvite stone. Now this struvite stone, basically it is due to urea splitting bacteria, a bacteria that is present in the urinary bladder. Basically it splits the urea, it breaks the urea into uric acid and cysteine, basically. So it leads to the formation of uric acid stone and cysteine stone. That's why it is always said you should never hold your urine for much longer time. Drink plenty of water if you don't want these stones to accumulate, because if the stones accumulate, then they will become the pebbles or hard one. So there are different steps of formation of stone. First, they are all minerals in dissolved form, but when the water concentration decreases in your body, these all minerals will accumulate, they will crystallize, they will undergo crystallization, and finally these crystals will accumulate, they will grow up in size, and then they will finally form the stone. Now depending on the size of the stone, various surgeries or various medicines or various techniques can be adopted. First is medicine. If the stone size is very small, if the stone size is very big, it cannot be dissolved by medicine, then we go for surgery. And last, there is option for ultrasound, where ultrasound is used just to break the particles of that big stone into small one. But as I told you, dialysis is not a good technique. So there has to be alternative, which is the best technique. So I can say the best technique is kidney transplantation, or even it is renal transplantation. See, we have two kidneys, so we can survive on one kidney. That is the good part here. So before going for kidney transplantation, lots of things has to be matched. The blood group has to be matched. The HLA factors has to be matched. So for kidney failure, you have to go for search for kidney donor. Now, when we talk about donor, before that, things that has to be matched is blood group factor, then HLA factor. What is HLA? It is human leukocyte antigen. Means when kidney is transplanted in your body should not identify that kidney as a foreign substance. Otherwise, it will destroy that kidney. So immunosuppressant is given whenever there is kidney transplantation done, just to prevent any kind of immunological attack on the organ that has been implanted in your body. So for kidney transplantation, that's why we always advise that we should take kidney from the one who are basically blood related. That is one thing that you can do. Or second option what you have is somebody who is matching your HLA factor. Now try to understand this important thing. The donor, basically, the moment I talk about donor, so there are basically two types of donor. One is called as deceased donor. Deceased means the person who is dead, cadaveric donor. The dead persons, you just pick up the body and you can take the kidney if the kidney is healthy. You have living donor. Now when I talk about living donor, the donor transplantation depends on the source of infection. Most of the time we have biologically related donor and biologically not related donor. So in living we have two. One is living related, like might be somebody from your family can come and donate kidney to you. Okay. or somebody like non-related one, somebody who is your friend or relative can donate kidney to you. But most important, you should never take kidney from young females, because these young females, they will become pregnant in future, and it will create lots of problem in pregnancy if they are having only one kidney. That's why never accept kidney from females. And if they are old enough, then you can definitely accept. The next part is excretion and osmoregulation's most important part. It is regulation of kidney functions. Now, when I use this word, regulation of kidney functions means how the kidney is going to work when the water and the salt concentration decreases or increases, how brain comes to know that kidney is not working properly or there is some kind of change in the concentration of fluids in the body. It is purely related to certain parts, hypothalamus, JGA, and the heart. And one very important mechanism that we need to study is RAAS system, that is renin angiotensinogen aldosterone system, and at the same time counter current mechanism. Once we finish all these parts, then your chapter excretion and osmoregulation will come to an end. So let's understand the very first regulation, that is hypothalamus. When I talk about hypothalamus, hypothalamus is the part of the brain, the most important part of the brain. Why? Because it maintains homeostasis. What is homeostasis? The ability of the body to maintain internal environment irrespective of external environment. No matter what is going on in the external world, but your internal environment, your body temperature will always remain constant at 37 degrees Celsius. That's why the hypothalamus is very important. Hypo means below, thalamus means the diencephalon. So this hypothalamus is basically present below the diencephalon. It is also called as the floor of the diencephalon. Let's understand another important part here. With respect to hypothalamus, if I draw the diagram, then it will be very easy for you to understand where this hypothalamus is. So I have made this part here. Now this part is the hypothalamus part. This is hypothalamus. So below the hypothalamus, what you will have? You will have the pituitary gland. Very important. What you're going to have? You're going to have the pituitary gland. So remember this, below the hypothalamus, there is a pituitary gland present. Let's talk about the next important part. This hypothalamus, how it regulates, how it is going to work. So very important part here is that the hypothalamus area has the potential to sense the change in the water and salt concentration. And when I draw this, this is the hypothalamus. There is a nervous system part. There is a stalk called as infundibulum. Remember students, infundibulum is the only stalk that connects your nervous system with the endocrine system. If I say the hypothalamus and the hormonal system, that is the pituitary gland, if they are connected to each other, they are connected by the help of infundibulum, the stalk that connects the anterior and the posterior pituitary gland. Most important, the hormones of the hypothalamus will enter in the posterior pituitary, because posterior pituitary never secretes any hormone. It is purely dependent on hypothalamus. So let's understand hypothalamus, what it helps in. So I can say that this hypothalamus is going to help in osmoregulation. What is osmoregulation? Maintaining water and salt balance. This is very important. It is maintaining water and salt balance. Hypothalamus has osmoreceptors. Hypothalamus has osmoreceptors. If there is high concentration of body fluid, one condition. The second condition is low concentration of body fluid. When I say high concentration, it means here water will be less and solute will be more. When I say low concentration of body fluid, it means here water will be more and solute will be less. So under both the conditions, the hypothalamus has to work, because your body cannot survive under both of these conditions. It can survive only in equilibrium. Let's take the first condition. So when I say the high concentration of body fluid, it means water is less. Under such condition, what happens? The receptors of the hypothalamus gets activated, because if water is less in your body, your body now cannot lose water in the form of urine. So what happens? ADH is released, anti-diuretic hormone, which is also called as vasopressin. This ADH will keep on absorbing the water and it will keep on adding it into the blood so that the body fluid concentration decreases and becomes normal. ADH is released from posterior pituitary gland, which is known as neurohypophysis. It is released from there, but it is secreted by the hypothalamus. When we talk about the ADH, now since there is more ADH present in the circulatory system, so what it will do, it will keep on absorbing more amount of water. So high concentration of ADH will increase water absorption, and finally the concentration level will be maintained. So I can say therefore it prevents the water loss in urine. So there is less loss of water in the urine. So water and fluid concentration now becomes equal. This is how ADH is going to work if there is very less water in the body. So water goes in the body fluid and things becomes normal. But there is one more condition. Sometimes we drink lots of water and the body fluid is not diluted. There is very less concentration in the body fluid, which is also not correct. So what happens under such condition, the receptors of the hypothalamus, it gets suppressed. It will not act. Now, once the receptors of the hypothalamus get suppressed, what happens? The ADH, that is antidiuretic hormone, or the vasopressin production will stop. And since ADH production stops, there is less ADH. So it decreases the water absorption. If water absorption is not taking place, it means more urine loss. You are going to lose water more and more in the urine. And since water is removed from the body fluid, what will happen? The concentration of the body fluid will increase. So body water in the body fluid now is going to decrease because there is a loss of water and the concentration will increase. And again, things become normal. So no matter whether high concentration of body fluid or low concentration of body fluid, hypothalamus is the most important part of your brain, having osmoreceptors that will regulate the concentration of body fluid. In high concentration of body fluid, ADH is activated. In low concentration of body fluid, ADH is suppressed because there is no need of water. Let's talk about ADH, how it is going to work. ADH is also known as, we can call it as vasopressin. It is a constrictor basically. It is a vasoconstrictor. It constricts the blood vessels. So antidiuretic hormone always increases the blood pressure. Therefore, GFR increases. What is GFR? Glomerular filtrate rate. This is what we need to understand. ADH, vasopressin, constrict the blood vessels, high blood pressure. Therefore, GFR increases. So this is how hypothalamus is going to work. The next important part is with respect to JGA. JGA is a big term, big concept. It is juxtaglomerular apparatus. Juxtaglomerular apparatus, what exactly it is, you will be seeing under RAAS system. That is renin, angiotensinogen, aldosterone system. See, most of the time the body blood pressure, blood volume get disturbed. If body's blood pressure and blood volume get disturbed, and that time RAAS system comes into picture. So let's understand what is RAAS. It is called as renin, aldosterone, or you can say renin, angiotensinogen, aldosterone system. We have to study RAAS system in detail. We are talking about RAAS. RAAS is nothing but renin, angiotensinogen, aldosterone system. The word RAAS is a very important and a technical term because here we have to understand what exactly goes on in your body when your body's blood pressure and blood volume get disturbed. So let's assume a hypothetical condition. Let's take this to be the circulatory system of any particular person, Mr. X. Now this Mr. X has his circulatory system well maintained, properly working. So all the parts of his body also will be working very fine. Like for example, in renin, angiotensin, and aldosterone system or the RAS system, the very important part of your body that is going to play an important role will be brain, because brain is going to coordinate each and every function. Whatever happens to your body, even small pin pricks your body, so your brain comes to know. So without brain we cannot talk about the RAS system. The most important organ that is going to play a very important role in RAS system is the lungs. Lungs plays a very important role, not exactly the lungs. To be very much specific, it is the alveoli of the lungs. On the alveoli of the lungs, there are some specialized enzymes present, and those enzymes helps in regulating the blood pressure and the blood volume. So this is the second important organ for the RAS system. The third and the most important one is the heart, because since we are talking about circulatory system, it is not possible to study circulatory system or maintaining blood pressure and blood volume without understanding and the role of human heart. So human heart also plays a very important role here in maintaining or regulating the blood pressure and blood volume of the body. So this is the human heart having four chambers, two atria and two ventricles. We draw this as the pulmonary artery, only artery to carry deoxygenated blood. Then we draw this as the biggest artery, and now the biggest artery is nothing but it is the aorta. So heart also has some hormonal role. So your heart is also acting like as a gland. This is superior vena cava, this is inferior vena cava, and this pulmonary artery we have to have two branches because we have two lungs. So the right lung for one pulmonary artery and left lung for the another one. So let us take it in this way. On right side you will receive all the deoxygenated blood. The left side will always receive the oxygenated blood. So this is the left and right pulmonary artery. The next important part that is going to play a very important role in the RAS system will be your adrenal gland. The adrenal gland is present on the kidney. So before that, let's draw one kidney. So we draw a kidney, but to be very much specific, the RAS system is not exactly in the kidney, it is in the nephron. The nephron plays a very important role. There is renal artery and renal vein which is connected to your circulatory system. So inside, now the important organ again, one more, is nothing but the liver. Liver also plays a very important role in the RAS system. You have to be first well versed with all the organs that are playing an important role in the RAS system. So we have brain, we have lungs, we have heart, we have kidney, and we have liver, because there are some important enzymes present in the liver also. And inside the kidney, what is present? Inside the kidney, there are nephrons. So we will take out one nephron. What is this? This is adrenal gland. Outer one is the cortex and inner one is the medulla. Let's take out one nephron outside. Now since I take out one nephron, then only I will be able to understand what exactly goes on in the RAS system. This is very technical system and very easy method to understand. So I take out one nephron. I draw one nephron. We all have studied the parts of nephron. This is Bowman's capsule, C-shaped or cup-shaped structure. Then we have PCT, proximal convoluted tubule. We have DCT. DCT is this one, that is distal convoluted tubule. Proximal means it is near the Bowman's capsule. Distal means it is far away. And the most important is this loop of Henle. This loop of Henle has two parts, the ascending limb of loop of Henle and descending limb of loop of Henle. First is the descending, then is the ascending. This is the afferent arteriole, bigger in diameter, and the efferent arteriole, smaller in diameter. And this is glomerulus, dense network of blood capillaries. So these are different parts. Now see, this Mr. X, basically, he is having a normal circulatory system. Let's take for example, he is riding a bike and all his organs like liver, lungs, adrenal gland, kidney, everything is working fit and fine. He is riding the bike and suddenly what happens that Mr. X meets with an accident. Now this is hypothetical situation, don't take it in reality at all. because we have to study how RAAS is going to maintain the blood pressure and blood volume constant, because RAAS, that is renin angiotensinogen aldosterone system, is for maintaining the blood pressure and the blood volume. So if the blood pressure and blood volume is normal in your body, then RAAS will not work. But if the blood pressure and the blood volume gets disturbed, either it increases or it decreases, under such condition, RAAS is going to work. So when we talk about nephron, we need to understand one very important part here. Whenever we talk about nephron, so let's understand in this way. Each nephron is going to act as blood pressure measuring device. Each nephron will act as blood pressure measuring device. What exactly it means? That the nephron is a masterpiece. The efferent arteriole that is there of the nephron will detect if there is decrease in the blood pressure and blood volume. So this Mr. X, whose circulatory system was fine, he was riding a bike, and suddenly what happens, he starts looking somewhere else and he meets with an accident. So when he meets with an accident, he get a cut, a heavy cut, where a massive bleeding is taking place from his body. So all the blood starts oozing out from his body. So in the circulatory system, definitely the blood pressure and the blood volume both will go down. Why? Because blood is coming out of his body, and in the system the blood pressure and blood volume decreases. Now the blood that will enter through the renal artery into the kidney, definitely it will enter under low pressure and low volume. So in renal artery also I can say the blood pressure and the blood volume is low. Now what is going to happen here? Try and understand this. In the nephron also, the blood that will enter, it will enter under low blood pressure and low blood volume. No matter whether Mr. X has met with an accident, kidney needs sufficient amount of blood. If kidney is not getting sufficient amount of blood, then kidney will collapse. So since the blood pressure and blood volume has decreased, under such condition, the efferent arteriole gets activated. And when the cells of efferent arteriole gets activated, they have a specialized cell. These cells are called as JG cells. JG cells means juxtaglomerular cells. And these juxtaglomerular cells, they will get activated after detecting there is low blood pressure and low blood volume. And what it does, it starts secreting very important hormone called as renin. R-E-N-I-N, renin. There is one more renin that is found in young children in the stomach, that is R-E-double-N-I-N, not this one. This renin from the blood now will enter via renal vein in the circulatory system. If renin is in the circulatory system, looking at renin, liver understands something is wrong. Something is wrong because renin is there. When you see lots of police in your area, what you say? Something is wrong. In that way, when renin is in the circulatory system, liver understands something is wrong. So looking at renin, what liver will do? Liver will convert the inactive angiotensinogen into active angiotensin 1. Remember, the angiotensinogen is present in your body, but logically it is inactive. And since it is inactive, what happens here? Since it is inactive, it gets converted into active angiotensin 1. Why? Because of the renin. Since renin was seen in the picture. Now angiotensin 1 will travel in the circulatory system. It will go into the lungs. To be very much specific, it will go in the alveoli. On the alveoli, there are blood capillaries present. In the blood capillaries, there is something called as ACE. What is ACE? It is angiotensin converting enzyme. So ACE is one of the most important enzyme that is present on the capillaries of alveoli. So what this ACE will do? The ACE will convert AG1, that is angiotensin 1, into angiotensin 2. What is the full form of ACE? Angiotensin converting enzyme. So now the AG1, because of the capillaries, it will be converted into AG2. This angiotensin 2 will now travel by the circulatory system, by the lungs pulmonary vein. It will go into the heart, and from the heart this angiotensin 2 will be pumped, and when it is pumped it travels by the aorta, it goes and it activates what? It will activate your adrenal gland. So this angiotensin 2 is going to activate the adrenal gland. So this is how the entire system till now it's working. The blood pressure, blood volume has gone down. Because of low blood pressure, blood volume, afferent arterioles, JG cell got activated. It has released renin. Renin from the kidney goes into the circulatory system. Looking at renin, liver converts the angiotensinogen, which was inactive, into angiotensin 1. That angiotensin 1 will now travel by the circulatory system in the lungs. On the capillaries of the alveoli, there is ACE present, angiotensinogen converting enzyme. It will convert AG1 to AG2, and that AG2 will travel via pulmonary vein. It will go into the heart, and from the heart it is pumped. And when it is pumped, it will travel by the aorta, and it will go and activate the adrenal cortex. Now this adrenal cortex, when it is activated, it produces one very important hormone that is called as aldosterone. The most important role of aldosterone is to absorb, the most important role is to absorb the Na plus ion, to absorb Na plus ion. This is the most important role that we need to understand here. So what happens here? This aldosterone will travel and it will come basically surrounding the PCT. So all the Na plus, see, GFR is less, glomerular filtrate is less. Since the glomerular filtrate is less, the flow of the filtrate also will be at a very low speed. So since if there is flow very slow, so this aldosterone will work very fast. So all the Na plus will be absorbed. All the Na plus will be absorbed by the PCT, that is proximal convoluted tubule. Now since PCT is absorbing all the Na plus, logically the sodium ion is absorbed by only DCT. Try to understand. Sodium ion is absorbed by DCT, but since PCT is surrounded by aldosterone and the flow of the glomerular filtrate is very slow, so all the Na plus will be absorbed by the proximal convoluted tubule. And as a result, what happens, since PCT is absorbing all the Na plus, what will happen to DCT? DCT will become angry. Why DCT will become angry? Because I was supposed to absorb the Na plus. Why you absorbed all my Na plus? So logically what happens, the cells of DCT which were supposed to absorb the Na plus, but they didn't got single sodium ion. Why? Because it was absorbed by the PCT. Why PCT was able to absorb? Because the flow of the glomerular filtrate was very slow. It's like a river which is flowing and there are mangoes in the river. If the river is flowing very slowly, you can pick up many mangoes at a faster rate. And that same thing is happening here in PCT. Logically, under ideal condition, the river should flow very fast so that you can pick up very less mangoes. But under this condition, more mangoes are picked up. As a result, more Na plus is absorbed. So DCT becomes angry. So these specialized cells of DCT now, it swells up. So there is a specialized cell of DCT which swells up, and now these specialized cells will go and complain. When I say complain, logically it means something goes wrong. You definitely complain to your parents, you complain to your teacher, you complain to someone who is elder. So in our body, the most important boss is nothing but the brain. So what happens here, the DCT, the cells of DCT basically, they complain to the brain that PCT has absorbed all my Na plus. Why I am not getting Na plus? Brain, please help me. Now, because of the complaint of DCT, brain's hypothalamus gets activated. It starts producing ADH. What is ADH? Anti-diuretic hormone. And this anti-diuretic hormone logically now will result in absorption of more of water. So the collecting tubule will absorb more water, more water, more water, and so all the water that will be absorbed will be given in the blood. Since water is added in the blood volume will increase. And if the blood volume has increased, so definitely the pressure is also going to increase. The flow of the blood will increase. So under such condition, this PCT now will not be able to absorb the Na plus because the filtrate is now flowing at a faster rate. So DCT gets the basically Na plus. So this all mechanism goes on when you meet with an accident and your body tries to recover itself on its own. But we forgot about this Mr. X. Let's take that somebody took Mr. X and they took him to the hospital where stitches were given. So now the blood flow is not outside his body because of stitches. So the blood flow is now inside. Initially only the blood volume and blood pressure has increased. Outside blood flow has stopped. So all the pressure is now inside. So try to understand. There is now more pressure, more volume than the normal, because normal was maintained by all this RAAS system mechanism, but his circulatory system is now not bleeding at all. The stitches have been provided at proper time, and now inside the circulatory system the blood pressure will become more high. So when this blood enters by the superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava in the right atrium of the heart, it recognizes, oh, this blood pressure is so much high than the normal which I can bear. So what happens? The right atria releases one hormone, and that hormone is nothing but it is ANF. So your heart's right atria has the potential to secrete one hormone called as ANF. What is the full form of NAF? It is atrial natriuretic factor. What the ANF will do? ANF is a vasodilator. So this ANF from the heart's right atria it is released, and now this ANF will travel by the circulatory system. It will first go and inhibit the adrenal cortex because it is a vasodilator. It will increase the diameter of the blood vessel so that the blood pressure decreases. And as a result, what happens? This ANF will decrease the blood pressure and the blood volume. How it does? Let's understand. It's very interesting to know that this ANF, atrial natriuretic factor, will first go and inhibit the adrenal cortex. Please stop producing aldosterone. Now, since aldosterone production is stopped, so what happens here? The Na plus absorption also will become normal. The here PCT will now not absorb any Na plus because aldosterone has been inhibited. So more Na plus goes to what? DCT. Initially, let's take DCT was absorbing 50 Na plus, but since now aldosterone is stopped, all the 50 Na plus that was absorbed by PCT is also passed to DCT. So now DCT is absorbing 100 Na plus. DCT says, please, I don't want to absorb so much Na plus. So now what DCT will do? DCT will take back the complaint from the brain. Brain, please, I am happy with the amount of Na plus. Don't give more Na plus. So brain will stop producing the hydrogen ion. The brain will stop producing the ADH, that is antidiuretic hormone. So water absorption will stop. And finally, again, blood pressure and blood volume will become normal. In this entire system, we have to understand one very important word that is called as juxtaglomerular apparatus. What exactly you mean by this word apparatus? So remember the cells of DCT which was swollen up, it is called as macula densa. Macula densa is that area which swells up, and the juxtaglomerular cells both are connected to each other by the help of specialized cell. So this middle one which is connecting the juxtaglomerular cells and the macula densa, they are called as mesangial cells. Now these mesangial cells and the juxtaglomerular cells, they together make this setup that is called as juxtaglomerular apparatus. So juxtaglomerular apparatus is not a one component, it is a component of three basically. The very first component will be your JG cells, then mesangial cells, then macula densa, and this together forms what? Juxtaglomerular apparatus. This is how the blood pressure and the blood volume is regulated, and your body's system becomes normal. This is how RAAS system works. So this is all about renin angiotensinogen aldosterone system. When we talk about angiotensin 1 and angiotensin 2, let's understand the different peptide bonds, amino acids they have. So I can say that angiotensinogen is having 453 amino acids. Angiotensin 1 has 10 amino acids. Angiotensin 2 has 8 amino acids. So this is all what you should know about the RAAS system. Let's talk about the next and the most important component. So in RAAS system, the role is just to maintain the entire blood pressure and blood volume at a constant level. So all this is a kind of RAAS Leela that your body is doing to maintain each and everything under normal condition. So JGS, if somebody asks you JG, just say it is juxtaglomerular. Now in juxtaglomerular, it can be two juxtaglomerular cells or it can be juxtaglomerular apparatus. So if it is cells, it is only the cells of afferent arteriole. If it is the apparatus, then it is of basically the cells of afferent arteriole, the DCT, distal convoluted tubule cells, and the mesangial cells. We talk about heart. The heart's right atria releases ANF. That ANF is nothing but it is going to act as a vasodilator. And what is the role of this vasodilator? That this vasodilator is going to increase the diameter so that things becomes very normal and proper. So remember, heart also releases one very important hormone, that is vasodilator. Vasodilator, it decreases the blood pressure and the blood volume. There are some important technical terms to be studied. Very first term is uremia. What is uremia? Excess of urea in blood is called as uremia. See, urea in blood is always dangerous. There is certain range of urea that can be there in the blood, but more than that will lead to a disorder that is called as uremia. So urea should be present in your blood under normal condition. So urea should be always lost in the urine, and if urea is there in the blood, still a permissible limit is allowed. If it gets accumulated in the blood, then what? Then it leads to a technical disorder that is called as uremia. So uremia is nothing but accumulation of urea in the blood. What is the normal level of urea in the blood basically? So I can say the normal level is 0.01 to 0.03%. Now, what is the abnormal level of urea in blood? So when I talk about abnormal level, it is more than 0.05% in blood. So if more than 0.05% of urea in blood, it is going to indicate uremia. That is a technical term given to such disorders. Highly harmful kidney failure is indicated by the uremia. So uremia is very harmful. If you are suffering from uremia, proper treatment is required at a proper time. There's a word called as nephritis. When I use this word itis, itis logically means swelling. When I use this word itis means swelling. So there is a swelling of nephron, which is called as even glomerular nephritis. So it is this swelling, basically swelling of the nephron. Whenever and wherever you see this word itis, it is related to swelling. Swelling of nephron takes place. So that is nephritis. It causes basically Bright's disease. Now, what is Bright's disease? What are the symptoms of nephritis or symptoms of Bright's disease? Let's take a look. It is characterized even by hematuria. What is hematuria? Loss of blood in urine. Proteinuria, loss of protein in urine. Hypertension, high blood pressure, edema, that is nothing but swelling. Oliguria, less urine output. When you pass out less urine than the normal range, then it is called as oliguria. The streptococcal glomerulonephritis. Streptococcal glomerulonephritis is the technical term given to it. It occurs in children basically. It occurs in children of 6 to 16 years old. Streptococcal glomerulonephritis. Why it is seen? It is seen due to infection basically of throat called as streptococcal pharyngitis. So remember, itis again there is a swelling. So we can say swelling of the pharynx basically. So streptococcal glomerulonephritis. So this is all what you should know about these disorders. We are talking about the very important topic of excretion and osmoregulation, that is counter current mechanism. What exactly you mean by this word counter current? Counter current means against, opposite. Something that is flowing in opposite direction, that is called as counter current. Here we are going to understand how the concentration of urine is going to decide the counter current mechanism. So let us take two example. I draw two circulatory system. So I draw this as Mr. A and here I take as Mr. Y. So I can take it in this way, that this is MA, that is Mr. A, and SA, that is Sister A. Here in case of Mr. A, the water is very much high in the circulatory system. It means there is low concentration of body fluid. And SA, here the water is low. Less water means high concentration of body fluid. And since there is high concentration of body fluid, it means here the blood will flow very slow because less water is there. So under this condition for Ma, I can say it is hypoosmolality. And here in case of Sa, the condition is hyperosmolality. So when the blood passes into the kidney, under both these conditions, what will happen? For MA, since there is low concentration of body fluid, means there is high amount of water present in the circulatory system, hypoosmolality is seen. Under this condition, there will be no counter current mechanism because already there is high amount of water. So urine volume here will be very high. But in case of other condition where there is less water, the urine volume will decrease. Since the urine volume has decreased, it means there is more absorption of water taking place, so that the water should be added into the circulatory system and the body fluid concentration will become normal. So looking at these two examples, what I can say, for MA, where the water concentration or the amount of water is high, there is low concentration of body fluid, urine volume is going to definitely increase. It will pass out more urine so that water level in the body will decrease. So what is going to happen under both these conditions? We are talking about counter current mechanism. So the counter current mechanism will be seen only in the SA condition when there is less water, high concentration of body fluid, hyperosmolality, so that water has to be absorbed. It will be added into the circulatory system and the body fluid concentration will come back to normal. So whenever we talk about counter current mechanism, remember it purely depends on the concentration of urine. Low water, basically, if there is less water in the urine, when we take less water intake, concentration of urine will definitely increase. High loss of water due to sweating, these are different factors under which the concentration of urine is going to increase. If you take less water intake, more loss of water is taking place due to sweating, so definitely the volume of urine will decrease. At the same time, the concentration will increase. So counter current mechanism takes place between two important factors. One is the LOH, loop of Henle of juxtamedullary nephron, and second is the vasa recta. Even collecting tubule is also involved in this counter current mechanism. How the salt urea concentration is maintained by the help of this counter current mechanism. Like we studied the RAAS system, in that same way we are going to talk about the counter current mechanism also. Glomerular filtrate is nothing but It is deproteinized plasma. This deproteinized plasma can also be called as primary urine. What happens here? Blood osmolarity. Normally it is 290, but we take it a round figure of 300 because 300 will help us to understand. What is the osmolarity of the blood? It is 290, but to make things simpler, I am going to take 300 as a round figure. So here, these are all the basically renal pyramid. There is a nephron. So I take out one pyramid outside. The renal pyramid is out, and there is a loop of Henle and the nephrons. So the space that you can see here between the pyramid and the loop of Henle, this is called as interstitial space. Very important. Or even it is also called as medullary interstitium. The space basically here. Or it is also called as medullary interstitial fluid, which is filled up here. So remember, loop of Henle, the renal pyramid, it has medullary interstitium, which is medullary interstitial fluid. This is all LOH, which is surrounding the peritubular capillaries surrounding the loop of Henle, is called as vasa recta. So if I draw this loop of Henle, so this red colored one is nothing but the vasa recta. This is descending limb of loop of Henle. This is ascending limb of loop of Henle. We all know descending limb of loop of Henle is permeable to water, but it is impermeable to salt. Ascending limb of loop of Henle is permeable to salt and impermeable to water. The flow of the filtrate is from descending to ascending limb of loop of Henle. But when I look at the vasa recta, one side is ascending limb of vasa recta and other side is descending limb of vasa recta. Just look at the flow of the fluid in the vasa recta. It will be opposite in direction to that of the loop of Henle, and this is where the counter current comes into picture. One is going from top to bottom, other one is going from bottom to top. This is counter current mechanism. For this, I will be drawing one nephron, and where we will understand how exactly the urea, the sodium ion, and all other components are maintained. So what we are going to do, take this as the loop of Henle, descending limb of loop of Henle, permeable to water and impermeable to salt. Ascending limb of loop of Henle, permeable to salt and impermeable to water. Now this line is basically indicating the cortex, the upper area cortex, and lower is medulla. Since some part of the nephron has entered from cortex in the medulla, this nephron I can call it as medullary or juxtamedullary nephron. So this space that you can see here now, this space is called as medullary interstitium, because here there will be what? Medulla present. The renal pyramid will be coming into picture here. So this is descending limb, which is permeable to water, but it will not absorb salt. But the ascending limb is permeable to salt basically, but it is impermeable to water. So whenever the filtrate is coming, it is going to travel basically from top to bottom. So we have to draw the efferent arteriole, and all other part we need to draw. So see, when the fluid is in the PCT, the concentration blood osmolarity will be how much? 300. As it is moving from top to bottom, water is getting absorbed. If water is getting absorbed, the concentration will increase. So it goes from 300 to 400 to 800 to 900 and finally 1200. Now through ascending limb of loop of Henle, it will travel where salt will be absorbed but not the water. Now since salt is getting absorbed, the concentration will decrease because the salt is less now in the fluid. Concentration decreases. So again from 1200 it will go to 900 to 800 to 400 and finally 300. So logically, when the fluid is traveling from PCT into the descending limb of loop of Henle, due to absorption of water, concentration has increased. And when it is traveling from ascending limb of loop of Henle, due to absorption of salt, the concentration is decreased. The maximum concentration of 1200 is seen only in the U-shaped bend of the loop of Henle. So NaCl and water that will be absorbed, where it will go? It will go in the vasa recta. It has to go in the vasa recta. See, the collecting tubule has some urea present. Now urea the molecular size is very small. Since the size is very small, it escapes the collecting tubule, and all the urea will get accumulated basically in the interstitium. How things are working, let's understand this. So the yellow one that I've drawn is the loop of Henle, and the red one is the vasa recta. Look at the direction of flow. In vasa recta, definitely blood is flowing, and in loop of Henle, the filtrate is flowing. But the direction of the flow is totally opposite. That is why it is called as counter current. Now under such condition, see, from 300 it will start. Due to absorption of water in the descending limb, the concentration is increasing now from 300 to 400 to 800 to 1200, and finally in opposite direction where NaCl is absorbed, concentration starts decreasing. So again from 1200 it will reach to 300. Water from the descending limb of loop of Henle will go in the vasa recta. Now since water is going in the vasa recta, it will dilute. It will dilute the blood basically. So the concentration will decrease. So from 1200 it will be 900 to 800 to 400 to 300. But from the ascending limb of loop of Henle, you can see the salt is entering in the vasa recta. So the concentration will increase. So 300 to 400 to 800, finally 1200. This is what is counter current mechanism. There is increase and decrease in the concentration of the fluid by flowing in opposite direction. So remember, between loop of Henle and vasa recta, counter current mechanism takes place. ADH is responsible for absorption of water. Aldosterone is responsible for absorption of Na plus ion. This is how the counter current mechanism is completed. And at the same time, this is collecting tubule which I have drawn. The collecting tubule will have little bit of permeability. As a result, what happens? The urea from the collecting tubule will escape, which was supposed to be lost in urine, but since collecting tubule was absorbing water, at the same time, due to small molecular size or nature, what happens? The urea escapes, and the urea will directly enter in the loop of Henle. It will not go in the vasa recta. So this is how the counter current mechanism takes place. So remember, in counter current mechanism, very important, opposite direction of the fluid. Concentration on one side keeps on increasing, other side keeps on decreasing. It takes place just to maintain the NaCl and the urea concentration. And the highest concentration that can be achieved is 1200. What is the normal osmolality in the blood? It is 300. So this urea now from the collecting tubule has entered into the space fluid, that is interstitial fluid. Now from this fluid it has to travel back into the nephron, and from there again it will be eliminated out in the urine. So this is counter current mechanism taking place in opposite direction. So it's very simple to understand the counter current mechanism. This mechanism nature has provided us just to balance the amount of salt and water in the body fluid, and when the flow is in opposite direction, how the concentration increases and decreases. This is what we have to understand. When we talk about urea, as I told you, some urea comes in the interstitial fluid because of the molecular size being very small. So what exactly happens? Let's take it in this way. This is the renal pyramid, the space that you can see now here. Here the concentration will be very high. So basically now what happens? The urea will travel into the ascending limb of loop of Henle. It will not go into the vasa recta basically, and finally from there it will be absorbed. So this is counter current mechanism.